Oh, I saw this one. I kind of want to watch it. The perfectly replicating Coca-Cola. I actually wanna see this. I saw this like on Twitter.
Hey everyone, welcome back to LabCoatz. Did you know Coca-Cola is the world's most popular non-alcoholic beverage? That's a little tidbit I picked up as I studied literally every aspect of this drink for almost a year at the cost of my own sanity, but I digress. Point is, Coca-Cola is kind of a big deal. Practically every human being on the planet knows what it is.
Yeah,
And yet,
true.
despite existing for almost 140 years, only a handful of people actually know what it's made of. As a matter of fact, the Coca-Cola secret formula is one of the most tightly guarded trade secrets to ever exist, with protective measures so extreme that they're almost laughable. Seriously.
And you know what's the funniest thing for me personally? Pepsi, Coca-Cola, and cheap like fake Coke. They all taste for me the same. Personally, I cannot tell the difference. I can tell you the difference between water, different kind of waters, but I cannot tell the difference between Pepsi, Coca-Cola, and fake Coke. But it is what it is.
Seriously, they have a giant steel vault that they show off on guided tours. Does that not sound like something straight out of SpongeBob? And if that wasn't enough, the ingredients are all shipped unlabeled and from entirely different facilities, who are kept almost entirely in the dark about what they're making. So much effort, all for a soft drink that the company half-heartedly promotes with horribly out-of-touch AI commercials.
Oh no.
Wouldn't it be funny if somebody managed to steal the secret formula right from under their noses, piece together a chemically identical beverage with the exact same flavor, and then tell absolutely everyone on the internet how to make it themselves? To most sane people, this probably sounds like a fool's errand. After all, many have attempted the quest and invariably came up short. Trust me, I tried all their formulations, none of them tasted like real Coke. So, is this even possible?
Real Coke? I think
Well,
you should
in
say
theory,
cola.
yes. One article from 2016 theorized that the recipe could be deciphered with the help of mass spectrometry, although the author basically concluded that only a major group like Pfizer would have the time and resources to actually do so. Guess this was before science YouTubers got serious, cause I actually have 2 YouTube friends with 2 different kinds of mass spectrometers,
Oh
and
my
one
god.
even happens to be a college professor.
Oh
Yeah,
my god.
we're coming for you, Coca-Cola.
Oh, but Zach, Coca-Cola uses coca leaves. You can't possibly hope to replicate it without...
Have you heard of chemicals? I'm aware that whatever I make won't be absolutely identical down to the trace contaminants, but if I add all of the major flavoring agents that are detected in real Coca-Cola, I should get something that tastes like Coke, regardless of if it came from a coca plant. And spoiler alert,
Dude.
Yeah, I can't even tell. Even though I know already, I can't even tell.
I wasn't expecting it to taste so much like Coke. Oh my god.
this approach actually works pretty freaking well. And in regards to legality, well, Coca-Cola hasn't actually patented their recipe. Seriously. Doing so would require them to expose
Really?
what they're actually patenting, and that's obviously not something they want to do. Consequently, unless I try marketing my own product under the Coca-Cola name, there's really nothing they can do about it.
LabCola.
So, what are we waiting for? Let's get cooking.
I would actually
Now,
buy
believe it or
this
not, we already know
rather.
over 99% of Coca-Cola's makeup, at least by weight. A liter of Coke contains roughly 110 grams of sugar, 96 milligrams of caffeine.
Oh my god. 110 grams in one bottle? I'm glad I don't drink Coca-Cola. I actually don't like it. I only like Coke Zero, but I don't really like cola as much.
And 0.64 grams of phosphoric acid, based on pH measurements and other scientific analysis. It also contains caramel color, which contributes important flavor compounds like furfural, in addition to the cola's rich brown hue. What we don't know is what makes up the last ingredient: natural flavors. This is where the real battle begins. As of 2025, only one of the natural flavors can be definitively verified: decoconized coca leaf extract. The Stepan Company in New Jersey is one of the only American companies licensed to work with coca leaves. And guess who they sell the extract to once the cocaine is removed? Cola nut extract was also used at one point, but it was phased out in favor of refined caffeine.
Yeah.
I tried finding my own source of cocaine-free coca extract, but companies like Power Leaves never returned my emails, and the package I bought from this definitely not sketchy Peruvian website got seized at the border. So basically I was at square one like every other non-Coca-Cola entity, which meant I had to work up the entire flavor profile from scratch. At first, I thought
wait,
this might...
so they actually use the coca leaf still? I didn't know that. I thought I know, like, in the beginning Coca-Cola was made of those coca leaves, but I thought they just stopped using them. That's
It's
interesting.
fairly easy. I mean, several cola recipes are already published, including the original Pemberton Coca-Cola from 1886, so I figured it'd simply be a matter of tweaking these until I got something that fit. Long story short, I was very, very wrong. As a starting point, most recipes call for the following set of flavors.
It's fucking weird.
Orange, lemon, lime, coriander, nutmeg, cinnamon, vanilla, and neroli. A few other ingredients that get suggested include black pepper, lavender, clove, and kaffir lime leaf. So I
That's
bought all
just
these
putting
flavors as
random
essential
stuff.
oils from reputable vendors. Using essential oils in food might sound a bit strange, but rest assured this is fairly standard practice in the food and beverage industry, as it allows for very precise and repeatable combination of flavors. To run my early trials, I would measure precise volumes of each oil using a micropipette, and combine them in a small vial. Once mixed, the required amount of flavor oil would be dissolved in roughly 1 milliliter of food-grade alcohol, which helps it disperse into the soda instead of clumping into droplets. This was an issue I faced when I made root beer from sassafras oil a few years ago, and the ethanol practically eliminates it without throwing off the flavor. Finally, the flavor mixture will be measured and added to a predetermined volume of soda, which was made with the established proportions of acid, caffeine, caramel color, and sugar. Pretty straightforward. Initially, I attempted to use something called an orthogonal array to perform my analysis. Nighthawk and Light has an excellent video explaining how these work, which I highly recommend you check out. But basically, an orthogonal or Taguchi array is a type of mathematical table that allows you to find meaningful correlations with a relatively small number of trials.
Okay.
In my case, I was hoping to determine which flavors contributed the most to the flavor of cola. Unfortunately, the human mouth perceives flavor mixtures in really complicated ways, so my results were highly inconclusive, and often disgusting. That said, I did actually learn a lot by doing this. In terms of flavors, nutmeg, cinnamon, and coriander seem to contribute the most to the iconic cola flavor, but not without a strong citrus base composed of lemon and lime. At the same time, flavors like neroli and lavender just didn't seem to work in the modern profile. They added a strong, floral note that isn't found in today's Coke, and also made it taste like artificial sweeteners were being used. And despite showing up in most recipes, orange didn't really seem to fit either, at least not in the large amounts that are usually suggested. 1 to 2% ended up being the sweet spot, and while modestly important to the flavor, higher amounts would begin to throw off the citrus notes. Of the other flavors I tested, kaffir lime leaf was by far the most out of place,
kaffir.
since it basically tasted like citronella. Clove was similarly overbearing and noticeably different from the spices found in Coke, while black pepper and vanilla contrastingly seemed to do very little. I mean, if I really boosted the vanilla, it was detectable and the perceived sweetness would go up, but black pepper mostly just seemed to accentuate the more earthy flavors already found in nutmeg.
Black pepper
Now,
oil.
while I did gather at least a rough idea of what's in Coca-Cola from these early trials, I still had no idea what the correct ratios were, or what ingredients I was missing. So to find out, I cracked out my secret weapons: scientific papers and chemical analysis. In terms of analysis, Vince from Neptunium and Ben from Aspect Everything agreed to analyze Coca-Cola, my ingredients, and a few similar sodas like Pepsi using their mass spectrometers. These machines essentially take a tiny sample of whatever you want, split it into chemical fractions using either a liquid or gas chromatography column, and then analyze each fraction by ionizing and firing its components through a magnetic field. Much like a prism splitting up light, the magnetic field splits up ions based on their mass,
it's a banger.
giving a sort of fingerprint that can be used to identify what chemical was ionized. That's the explanation, and this is the exact chemical makeup of Coca-Cola. Let's dissect its secrets, shall we? The dominant peak we found was something called alpha-terpineol, which mostly arises from the acid-catalyzed hydrolysis of limonene and pinene, and it hints that citrus oils do in fact make up a large portion of Coke's flavor. The next major peak is actually the remaining limonene, followed by 4-terpineol and fenchol. Cinnamaldehyde, saponine, and carine were also detected, indicating the presence of cinnamon and nutmeg. And finally, we found eucalyptol, borneol, furfural from the caramel color, and ethyl levolinate. levulinic acid and its esters
I have
form when sugars like fructose
none
are
of
heated
these
under
words
acidic
were in
conditions,
Bible, bro.
which suggests the Coca-Cola undergoes heating at some point during its production. Now, this is all well and good, but unfortunately, we couldn't pin down the exact concentration of each component using this data. You see, a mass spectrometer's output is given as a plot of relative intensity, not concentration. If you want concentration, you usually have to do a lot of math and other testing to figure out how different chemicals interact with the machine. So, instead of relying purely on the mass spectrometry data we collected, I chose to also lean on the data from this article in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry. This table in particular listed pretty much every flavor found in Coca-Cola, and even gave their measured concentrations.
I'm not thinking about.
There were a few flavors they left out,
straight for
such as
vibes.
fenchel, but I figured once the concentrations of other
the
ingredients
fuck's
were
my
determined,
fenchel?
these secondary flavors would be easy to dial in with the help of mass spectrometry. I won't be going through every chemical on this list, but there are a few I'd like to point out that reveal important information about the secret formula. Obviously, cinnamaldehyde and vanillin can be directly correlated with cinnamon and vanilla, so we can check those off as part of Coke's recipe. Limonene and alpha-terpineol are also present, along with aldehydes like octanol, nonanol, and decanol, which collectively signal the strong presence of citrus oils. This is all stuff we mostly knew. Things get interesting, though, with linalool and the various forms of eugenol. Eugenol and its esters make up 80 to 90% of clove oil, which is one of the suggested ingredients that people reference from time to time. However, the concentrations found in Coke are only enough to account for the traces contributed by nutmeg and cinnamon oils, which are much more definitive ingredients. And since clove oil threw off the flavor in my early tests, I think it's fairly safe to rule it out as a potential flavor. Sticking with ingredients we already discussed, linalool also rules out a few potential flavors. To explain how, though, we need to talk about enantiomers. Basically, for a
About
molecule
what?
like linalool, two mirrored versions exist, R and S. You can flip them around all you want, but no orientation will make them identical. Interestingly, the R enantiomer of linalool makes up the majority of both lavender and neroli oils, while the S enantiomer makes up the majority of coriander oil. And, according to the study, Coca-Cola contains mostly S-linalool, with the amount of R-linalool only being enough to cover what would come from the citrus oils. Some might argue that chemicals like neral and nerol signify the presence of neroli, but this simply isn't the case. These compounds are found in citrus oils just like linalool, meaning we can pretty definitively say neroli and lavender are not ingredients in Coke. The last chemical I'm going to bring up is acetic acid. To me, this one was
White
kind of a
vinegar.
shock, especially with it being the third most prominent flavor by mass. My first thought was that it was simply arising from the acid-catalyzed breakdown of acetate esters in the cola. But after talking with Darcy over on the Art of Drink channel, and seeing it in an actual recipe from the 1950s, I'm almost certain that's being added deliberately. To be clear, the amounts being used are in the range of parts per million, but I still find it kind of funny that vinegar is probably one of the secret ingredients. With the major
yeah,
flavoring
that's my-
compounds identified and correlated with existing ingredients, I
have
set up
the
an Excel
same
spreadsheet
reaction,
to make iterating.
bro. Any fucking fantasy game has like more understandable words than this.
My recipes a bit easier. A mixing calculator would basically take the volume of each oil being added, determine how much of each component was present, and then compare that data with the Coca-Cola numbers. Once everything was matching, I would take the recipe, log it on a separate tab with notes about the soda it made, and finally rank how close it was to real Coke. Unfortunately, while most of the flavor compounds could be easily connected to at least one of the essential oils, there were a few that just weren't showing up on the mass spectrum. Specifically, fenchel and 4-terpineol. Originally, alpha-terpineol was also on this list, but after modifying my soda preparation to include heating, there was more than enough of it to go around. For the fenchel, I simply resorted to buying the raw chemical. But for 4-terpineol, I started down a completely new rabbit hole. You see, the taste of Coca-Cola can be divided into a few main groups.
There's no way people study something like this. What the hell?
The two we've tackled so far, and the two most people stop at, are citrus and brown spices, along with less pronounced subgroups like caramel and vanilla. What most people tend to overlook are the more green, fresh flavors that seem to come from the coca leaf. Without these flavors, you tend to end up with a more spice-centered drink like Pepsi. So, for my source of 4-terpineol, I decided to go with an essential oil that I felt would reintroduce those missing flavors. Tea tree oil. By mass, this stuff is close to 50% 4-terpineol, and most of the other chemicals it contains match up with those found in Coca-Cola, so it doesn't really mess up the mass spectrum. When I began using it, I noticed an immediate improvement in the flavor, although it never fully replenished the missing freshness. Overall, it was more like drinking Diet Coke than regular Coke, and no amount of tweaking or adding essential oils seemed to change that. I spent months adjusting the recipe, testing new ingredients, and forcing family members to taste my experiments. Eventually, my original soda stream gave out, and I had to buy a second one.
This is starting to become unreasonably expensive.
I tested cassia cinnamon versus cinnamon leaf, different versions of nutmeg and lime, heating and aging versus not, even adding trace flavors like isobutyl. Heck, I even tested completely random flavors to see if they'd fill in what was lacking. They
Oh my
never
God.
did. After a certain point, I was pretty close to throwing in the towel. Maybe people were right to say that Coca-Cola is impossible to replicate without coca leaves. And then, the answer finally hit me. Coca leaf extract is essentially a type of tea, and teas contain tannins. These tannins possess a dry, astringent taste that can help mask sweet
Oh.
flavors. And since they're non-volatile, they don't usually show up on gas-based mass spectrums, explaining how I missed them for so long. Best of all, they're sold in a purified
Well, he
state for
uploaded the
winemaking,
video, right?
meaning I could quickly get a hold of a sample and test out my theory.
Dude.
And it was all worth it. This is the mass spectrum of Coca-Cola. And this is the mass spectrum of one of my replicas. They're nearly identical. And the flavor, well, what can I say? It tastes like Coke. There are tiny differences, of course, but honestly, this stuff is closer to classic Coke than Coke's own glass bottle or Diet Colas are, and infinitely closer than any other replica. It definitely checks out as Coca-Cola, at least to me. We'll get to other people's reactions and opinions here in a minute. But first, let me show you exactly how it's made.
Okay.
Brief spoiler,
Chat, make notes, because we can make our own Coke at home.
the startup cost for this recipe can be kinda high, unless you have a pre-existing stockpile of essential oils and accurate measuring equipment. Once you have everything though, you can easily produce a bulk flavor solution that will last for years, and allow you to create servings of Coke for mere pennies. No more paying a company that won't even pay real animators. In terms of hardware, we'll need a mass scale, an adjustable micropipette that can accurately dispense up to 1,000 microliters, a 50 milliliter graduated cylinder, some 1 liter storage bottles, and some kind of heat-resistant glassware for making the syrup.
Oh.
Resist the temptation to use metal cookware, since phosphoric acid can attack it and dissolve less than healthy metals into the soda. There is a reason soda cans have that plastic liner. Finally, you can also use a magnetic stirrer for mixing, as well as a 1 liter volumetric flask to make the dilution steps a bit easier. For ingredients, we have all the essential oils seen here: sugar, carbonated water, caffeine, caramel color,
Okay, per liter of cola version 111, carbonated water, sugar 104 milligrams, 1 milliliter flavor solution A, 10 milliliter flavor solution B. Frozen solution A, dilute 20 parts of 21 milliliters of the following oil mixture to 1 liter using 95% ethanol. Sure. Frozen solution B, dilute of the following ingredients. Shank. Okay, what the fuck? Hi Haru, how are you doing?
food-grade alcohol, 85% phosphoric acid, glycerin, wine tannins, 5% vinegar, vanilla extract,
Madam, we have
and
to
fenchel.
cook. Chat, we have
Quick
to
note,
cook.
fenchel melts just above room temperature, so you might need to warm it up in some hot water before beginning. I bought my sample on Amazon, and after testing it, I can confirm its flavor is present in Coke, so use it if you can. For caramel color, I used Shank's brand, but other varieties like Durkee should work just as well, as long as they're composed of actual caramel color and not a mix of red and green food dyes. If you don't use Shank's though, try playing with the amounts you add to get the right color. Also, keep in mind that we are working with chemicals here, including a few that are mildly hazardous. So, for your own safety, wear gloves, measure accurately, and don't taste any of the unmixed ingredients. The first step is to prepare what most people call the 7X flavoring, which is the mixture of essential oils and alcohol that make up the Coca-Cola secret formula. To be clear, what I'm about to share is not the Coca-Cola secret formula, since I failed to utilize decoconized coca leaf extract. Chemically though, it's about as close as you can get without it, and the real deal should be fairly similar. The recipe is 45.8 milliliters lemon, 36.5 milliliters lime, 1.2 milliliters orange, 8 milliliters tea tree, 4.5 milliliters cassia cinnamon, 2.7 milliliters nutmeg, 0.7 milliliters coriander, and 0.6 milliliters fenchel. And optimally, you'd let this mixture age for a day or two before continuing. Art of Drink has an excellent video explaining why, and even the original Pemberton version of Coca-Cola includes this aging step. In the end, you'll be rewarded with about 100 milliliters of flavor oil, which is enough for over 5,000 liters of soda, or about as much as your mom drinks in a day. To make the 7X solution, simply dilute 20 milliliters of the flavor oil to a volume of 1 liter using food-grade alcohol. And before anyone gets worried, the amount of alcohol being added to the final soda is 5 times less than what you get from a non-alcoholic beer, and far too little to taste or make this drink intoxicating. Other flavor extracts like vanilla or almond use ethanol as a solvent.
5
this is no different.
of Coke?
Still, if alcohol is an issue, you can emulsify the oil into water with the help of gum arabic. Check out Glenn and Friends Cooking to see how he does this with his cola. Anyway, next, we'll need to make a secondary water-based solution containing the other ingredients, aside from sugar and carbonated water. Into roughly 200 milliliters of hot water, measure out 10 milliliters of 5% vinegar, 9.65 grams of caffeine, 175 grams of glycerin, 45 milliliters of 85% phosphoric acid, 8 grams of wine tannins, 10 milliliters of vanilla extract, and 320 milliliters of Shank's caramel color. In case you're wondering, the glycerin is being added for texture and mouthfeel. Without it, the drink tends to feel a bit thinner and more like diet soda. Also, if using vanilla extract feels imprecise, you can alternatively mix up a solution containing 9.5 grams per liter of vanillin and use 1 milliliter of that. Given the fairly limited impact vanilla seems to have though, you probably wouldn't notice a major difference. Give each ingredient time to fully incorporate before adding the next, and once everything is dissolved, dilute the mixture to a final volume of 1 liter using water. Now, let's make some Coca-Cola. For this demo, I'll be making 1 liter, just so scaling up or down is a bit easier. Into a glass dish, add 104 grams of sugar, and just enough water to dissolve everything. I know I said 110 grams of sugar per liter of soda at the beginning of the video, but here's the deal. That's for a mixture of fructose and glucose, like you'd find in corn syrup. If we add 110 grams of sucrose, or cane sugar, the phosphoric acid will cause it to react with the water and form nearly 116 grams of those simpler sugars. That would throw off the sweetness of the drink, so we use less sugar to compensate. Anyway, next we add our flavor solutions to the syrup. 10 milliliters of the water-based solution, and 1 milliliter of the alcohol-based 7X solution. You might need a few extra drops of the 7X solution, it really depends on your taste. As soon as everything is combined, microwave or otherwise heat the mixture until nearly boiling, and cover to prevent the more volatile flavors from escaping. Heating like this helps the phosphoric acid break down compounds like limonene and citral, and it also accelerates that sugar hydrolysis reaction we just talked about. So it's a fairly crucial step. Once fully cooled, dilute the syrup to a volume of 1 liter with cold carbonated water. This can either be bought or made yourself using a soda stream. Just don't attempt to carbonate the fully mixed soda on the machine. It tends to produce a lot of foam, which can lead to bacterial growth if you're not careful.
Oh no.
And this is our finished Coca-Cola. You can drink it directly, but if you want the most accurate version of the final flavor, allow the soda to rest for a day or so in the fridge. And again, while the flavor is as close as I could get to Coke after a year of trying, and certainly closer than any other clone I've tasted, there is still room for perfection. So if you have the ingredients, feel free to experiment. And for future reference, I'll have the most up-to-date...
But you cannot really get carbonated water at home by yourself, I think. It's just like woda gas, mocny gas. Mocny gas, I think, is pretty good for this. So like soda stream as well.
Version of the recipe in the video description. Of course, I could go on and on about how I think my cola tastes, but what do other people think? Is this a convincing replica, or just another Pemberton knockoff? Well, I set up several blind and non-blind taste tests, and people actually had trouble telling it apart from real Coke.
This is regular Coke, see, I can't even tell. Even though I know already, I can't even tell.
9.5 out of 10.
9.5 out of 10? That's pretty good.
That tastes pretty close. Like, I may not be able to tell if these are side by side with the original taste.
Mm-hmm. That is definitely, Coke, or a Coke product. If you said it was vanilla Coke or something like that, I'd be like, yeah, maybe that's definitely Coke.
I think this is more similar to this bottle than this is to that bottle. Which is
That's crazy.
crazy to think about now that I said that out loud.
Wait, how is it different? Chat. How is this one different from this one? I don't get it. I don't get it. How this is different from this one? Is this like UK version? Like US version? Like what is the difference?
Which is crazy to think about now that I said that out loud.
Glass bottle tastes better.
I wasn't expecting it to taste so much like Coke. Oh my gosh.
How can it taste better?
Coke.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, like if you sold this on the shelves, I'd buy it.
Regular Coke drinkers were better picking mine out from the mix, but the general consensus was that Lab Cola could be mistaken for Coke, and not other colas like Pepsi. When tasted on its own, without Coca-Cola as a direct reference, people overwhelmingly thought it was the real deal, unlike the Pemberton recipe, Open Cola, and other clones I had them try.
Yeah, that's not Coke. Oh.
No, that's not Coke. No, that's not even, like, it's a cola, but like that's not Coke. That is just straight flour.
It's very cinnamony to me. That's like almost pure cinnamon.
Like you know, like those little candies.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not Coke.
Alright, I think that's finally it. 2025
Okay.
is coming to a close, and it has been an insane year for this channel. Thanks to everyone's support, I was able to take on crazy projects like making fluorine gas at home, preparing oleum piranha solution, and putting a 360 camera probe in front of a tornado. Stay tuned for that adventure. 2026 is
2025 was 10 years ago. I know, that's crazy. Okay, wow. Okay, this is insane work, but you know what's this? Okay, this is the most jobless, autistic nerd thing I've saw in my entire life, because someone literally spent an entire fucking year to just fucking try to replicate a fucking like drink that you can buy for like €150 at shop. But I'm not gonna lie, this is fucking like attractive as shit. Like it's so fucking hilarious. And the effort to fuck over the no, definitely. Bro, release the Coke files. This is insane. Brother, I've seen people disappear for less. That's true. I hope he was gonna be safe. Cause sorry for your car accident tomorrow. Not to self, never board the same plane as you. I hope he's gonna be fine. But oh my god, that's insane. I also want to watch this video about the Black Lotus, even though it's from 7 years ago, but I never watched it. I want to watch it one day, if you guys want to. Anyways, I think that's it. That was insane. I liked it. Why soda's Okay, sure. This is probably short video, right?
People have strong opinions about soda containers.
Cans are
Let's watch
significantly
it,
better
actually.
than bottles.
I think bottle probably tastes the best to me.
A can keeps it colder.
I prefer a glass bottle soda.
But does the container really affect the flavor? Soda companies claim to use the same proportion of ingredients. A company spokesperson for Coca-Cola told us that Coca-Cola uses the same recipe, regardless of the package type, and that it's best enjoyed ice cold. But there are a few factors that could still affect the way you taste it. First, let's take a look at the ingredients in the containers. Glass bottles are pretty basic and contain no other chemical ingredients besides the glass. So there's nothing in it that could really change the taste. Cans are typically aluminum, lined on the inside with a polymer that can contain BPA, or bisphenol A. Rick Sockleben, a retired chemist with the American Chemical Society, says this has little effect on the taste.
The amount of that material that would get into the contents of a container are so low, I don't think it would have any effect on flavor.
This lining protects the taste of the soda. and keeps it from being contaminated by the metal.
So the likelihood of having a break in that lacquer coating, that plastic coating, and exposing the contents to the metal are pretty low.
Despite protective lining, some people still think there's a metal taste.
I actually think it tastes like cans. Sometimes cans can taste a little bit metallic.
So where is this sensation coming from?
Your tongue is very sensitive
glass
to metal.
tastes
The
better
one
than
time
metal,
when
true.
the product is exposed to the metal itself is when the can's open. You put your tongue on a metal can, it's entirely possible, especially people who are sensitive to it, there would be just enough to come off to change the way things tasted on their tongue.
Plastic bottles are typically made with PET, or polyethylene terephthalate.
Okay,
While
that's the
both
worst one
cans
for
and
sure.
plastic bottles contain chemicals you probably wouldn't want to consume in large quantities, they are perfectly safe to drink out of.
All containers that they use, glass, plastic, metal, have been extensively tested for what will leach into the liquid that's put in them.
You can't
The
taste glass, but
FDA
you can
also
taste metal,
regulates
trust
the
me, I
amount
know.
of contaminants allowed in drinks
That's just
to make
good
sure
if you
they're safe.
taste metal.
But humans have been known to detect even minute amounts of contaminants, according to Christy Spackman, a researcher at Harvey Mudd College who studies taste.
Here it's useful to remember that 0 is not always 0. People can detect certain things at levels well below instrumental detection. It depends on the molecule and it depends on the human.
So, while unlikely, it's possible that even the slightest bit of contamination might affect the taste for some. Now let's take a look at carbonation. Humans taste carbonation using the same taste receptors that recognize sour foods, according to a 2009 study by Science magazine.
Oh yeah, is that why like carbonated water feels like kind of like sour for me? Like I hate carbonated water. I fucking despise carbonated water because it tastes like very sour for me.
And we can also detect carbonation from soda in another way.
When you drink it, you get two things going on. One is you get that tingly thing from the bubble, but you also get that carbon dioxide going up in your nose.
Oh yeah, true.
It carries the other flavors into your nose as well.
So carbonation levels can affect the taste, but how can the CO2 levels change based on the packaging?
So carbonation can slowly potentially leak out of a plastic bottle in a way it can't leak out of a glass bottle that's, assuming they've both been appropriately sealed.
The structure of the glass is pretty tight, okay? It's like a really tight mesh rather than a loose mesh.
Yeah.
The diffusion rates through glass are really slow. And in metal, it's the same thing.
But most bottles are typically designed to prevent CO2 from escaping quickly.
A plastic bottle is a multi-layer thing. Some of them provide rigidity and some of them provide a barrier to the oxygen going in and the CO2 coming out. And then there's a final barrier that just protects the contents.
And if the container is warm, more CO2 will be released when you open it, making the soda taste flat. Light can also affect flavor, assuming the bottle does not contain any light protective layers.
Light can cause chemical reactions to occur, and so some of the substances in there may change, some of the flavor compounds.
Why those like professors? I don't know if you guys.
A lot of the
this,
flavor
but, like,
compounds
always
are really,
the experts and shit like this. They always have like the worst fucking webcam positioned on the window with like the worst like microphone ever. It's always like this. I don't know why.
They're subtle molecules. They're the sort of things that can really, a little change can change their flavor a lot.
So how a soda is stored can prevent any rapid alteration in taste.
So something that's bottled in glass and stored away from light is going to have a flavor profile that can last much longer, and also carbonation levels that will stay consistent much longer than something in plastic.
But there's also more to taste than what happens on a molecular level. Spackman says experience can also affect the way we taste. People who drink Diet Coke a lot every day, for example, might be able to tell a difference more than someone else.
And so they have this sensory awareness just because their memory is so constantly being refreshed about what a sensory experience is like.
It's really hard to separate the objective and subjective sides to taste. What we taste sometimes is as much affected by what we expect as what's actually there.
That might be true.
So soda drinkers aren't likely to change their habits anytime soon. How do you like your soda? Leave a comment below and let us know.
I like my soda I don't like it actually that much. Yeah, I'm not much of Coke person. I prefer LSD